Anyway, we're always looking for things. So if you see someone or see some person that's would fit in with the vegan community, we'd love to try to get a hold of them and have them come and talk. So tonight, Rick really hit it on the head. This gal is just unbelievable. She is involved in so many vegan activities. Some of those are her own companies and stuff. She is just amazing.
Powerhouse.
And with
No caffeine.
Is it busy? Got people.
and with the Northwest VEG, she's always volunteering. She's always trying to get a number of us to help. She's just a wonderful resource. I'm not going to talk too much more about her. I'll let her do that herself. Anyway, thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, and by the way, her name's Deanna. I don't think I said that. Deanna.
Awesome. Oh, thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you. So my name is Deanna, and I've known John and Donna for years through Northwest VEG events and volunteering. And they reached out and asked if I'd like to speak at a Vancouver potluck. I live in Southeast Portland in the Lentz neighborhood, which is outer Southeast on the border of Clackamas. But I said, sure, what do you want me to talk about? And they said, whatever you want. I'm like, okay, that's very open-ended. So I drafted a simple kind of autobiography with a little bit of my vegan story and what I'm involved with now and what those nonprofits do. And then at the end, if you have any questions about anything I talked about, feel free. But it's going to be pretty casual, and I'm a visual person. I don't like to just hear someone talk at me, so I created a little visual for you too. So this is my LLC, which I started a couple years ago, mainly for my real estate business. It's just one of my main landing page, I would say, summarizing what I do, including my personal contact info. I'll also give you the nonprofit contact info and my professional contact info. I have many emails, and I like to keep things separate depending on the context in order to keep my life a little more sane. So I was born in San Diego in Bonita, and we lived there, my family and I, for 10 years. And then we all moved to Kona, Hawaii. My parents were married there decades before on a boat, and my dad was a deep sea fisherman and sold boats and wanted to see what it was like to live there. And all of our extended family on my dad's side is still in Southern California, but it was time for a break from them. So we moved to Hawaii. I went through middle school and high school there, but I was one of the people where island fever was affecting me, and I knew I did not want to stay there for college. I loved it. I loved the beautiful water, the warm weather, but as far as stimulation and activity and variety, it was not a good fit for me. So then I came to Oregon. I was originally going to go to college down in San Luis Obispo at Cal Poly and double major in education and architecture, but they wanted me to start in the summer, and I didn't want to start in the summer. So I went to my second choice school, which was a private liberal arts college in Newburgh called George Fox. It was a good education. I got in trouble a lot because I don't follow rules I don't believe in. So they were happy to see me gone, and I was happy to graduate. And with a good enough GPA for grad school and all that. But and Newburgh, had no idea what like Quaker was or any of that. Religion wasn't a huge part of my growing up, and certainly not the different smaller arms of Christianity. But it was a really, beautiful campus. I'm still friends with a lot of people that I met back then in the late 90s, early 2000s. So yeah, went through college there, used my major for a couple years, and then I did 2 years of AmeriCorps. If you haven't heard of AmeriCorps, it's like the domestic Peace Corps. So my first year, I did a program called NCCC, team-based. You travel around a region doing different projects. So we were based in Charleston, South Carolina, did projects all over the Southeast region. including tracking endangered species with the Nature Conservancy, building trails with state parks. Some people did firefighting and disaster relief. Some people taught in schools. Quite a variety. And it's meant for people out of high school or right out of college to like get some skills, get some life experience, figure out maybe what they're interested in. It was one of the best years of my life. So
Was it also known as Vista?
no, Vista's a separate program, and I did that my second year. Yeah, NCCC, National Civilian Community Corps, is still around, although the bases have shifted a little bit. And then there's Vista, and then there's state-specific programs within AmeriCorps. And it's a government-funded program, so there's always... I mean, it's been on the chopping block multiple years. As an alumni, I get the emails, which is really unfortunate because not only like the life experience, but also when you complete your year of service, you get an education award that you can use for future education or to apply to a loan you already have. Some people opt, instead of the education award, to just do a cash payout, which is less, but could get a laptop or do something else. And folks that maybe don't have the resources to get education further than high school, huge incentive and life experience, hands-on. But yeah, so NCCC, still around, always on the chopping block. Support AmeriCorps, please. But that was my first year. My second year was a VISTA, Volunteers in Service to America. No age cap on that. NCCC, 25 years old or younger. I applied when I was 24. My friend Sochi and I got in. We were older than our team leader. A little bit awkward. It all worked out. We were all friends still by the end of the year. But if you've ever been in that position where your superior is younger than you, it's weird, even in your like mid-20s. But my second year of AmeriCorps was in Anchorage, Alaska. So I worked for a nonprofit that was responsible for 50% of the adult learners earning their GED in this state. So I worked with a lot of people that were in halfway houses, that were out of prison, that were new to the country, trying to get an education and established here. I'd been to Alaska before, had friends there. Living there was an experience. But it wasn't warm enough in the summers to justify me living there in the winters. So now I just go back to visit, and it's a huge state. So even though I feel like I've seen a good amount of it, I've really only seen a very small part of it. So then after Vista, I came back to Oregon, fully planning on moving down to Fresno to help a friend through some stuff. And then I realized I really like Oregon. Why do I keep moving? I should stay here. Which I did, and I told my friend I would, go down and support her through whatever she was going through. And that was in 2006. So started establishing my roots here. I'd been pescatarian my first year of AmeriCorps. In fact, our team of 12, only one was vegetarian when we started, and she was reading this book called The Mad Cowboy. And she passed it around to us, because we're all together. We're traveling 10 hours at a time in a van. We're like living in cabins, pretty much off the grid. Like, we need entertainment. And by the end of our year of service, like 4 or 5 of us were vegetarian or pescatarian. So if you have not read that book, it's very powerful. And I consider myself a pretty aware, inquisitive person. And I just had not thought systemically about food production. So that just blew my mind, coming from a rancher, like, what? This happens? And being also kind of a skeptic, I don't ever read things and believe it's true. I had to cross-reference a bit, and sure enough, found multiple repeatable resources that I said, yeah, no, this is The Mad Cowboy. Yeah, and he actually lives in Washington. I think he's still alive, Howard Lyman. Yeah, and I read his second book too, which is called No More Bull. But highly recommend The Mad Cowboy.
We had him here once.
Howard helped us launch the original chapter at the time he was president of EarthSave.
Yeah.
And he stayed with us for a week, and we took him all over and speak to what a great guy.
Yeah, he seems
Moved a lot
beautiful.
of people. John Robbins would talk to your heart, but Howard would get you so pissed off.
Yeah. And he was pissed. I mean, he was mad. He was mad, and he was in the industry for 5 generations, like that lineage. So yeah, moved back 2006, that year. When I came back to Alaska, I was like, do I want to be raw or do I want to be vegan? And I'm ready for the next thing. and I don't really like seeds and nuts, and I really like bread and pasta. So I decided, oh, I'll do this vegan thing, you know, just ready to transition from pescatarian, which I was for 4 years. Because my dad was a deep sea fisherman, rod and reel caught, I would eat seafood once a year when I'd go back to visit them. But I was ready to do something different. So coming back from Alaska, decided to try this vegan thing, learn more about that, started to tap into Northwest Veg and Northwest Veg events in 2007, eventually joining the board, which I was on for 8 years. And I led committees for 5 of those years. And during this time, I was using my undergrad major in the education sector as a preschool teacher. And education, art, and psychology is what I ended up combining for my degree. And then I decided, oh, let's go to grad school at a really beautiful, expensive private school. So I went to Lewis and Clark for grad school. And got an MED in school counseling, which I did for a few years afterwards. Great education, highly recommend the school. And the degree's not going anywhere, even though I'm not currently using it. It was a great experience. It's a great school.
They need school counselors nowadays.
Well, now they do. At the time, I had to go to rural communities because there were no school counseling positions open in Portland. So I was commuting an hour to work each day. Yeah, it's really tough, isolating career. In retrospect, I kind of wish I would have gotten an MSW instead, but oh well. So yeah, went to grad school, used that for a few years, worked for farm animal rights movement for a year when they had a Portland office, and then transitioned there. I ended up working for a previous friend, helping her with her 3 businesses, one of which was real estate. Got licensed under her. And then we parted ways, and I was like, oh my God, I've never been self-employed before. This is really scary, but I have this, this license for 2 years, so passed the state and federal tests. Should give it a shot. I can always go back to what my degrees are in or go back to the nonprofit sector if I need to. So that was in 2015. So I've now been licensed. This is my 10th year, renewed it multiple times. And yeah, we're basically here into this 2025 season. So this is kind of more detailed of what I just said verbally. When I left the board of Northwest Veg, I did so to start a nonprofit called Northwest Animal Foundation. And I'll give you a little more detail into what they do. And then I also started volunteering weekly with the Red Cross, doing disaster relief casework with people that have been locally affected by fires, trees falling on their homes, floods, as well as getting involved with Portland Books Through Bars, which I'm now also the president of. And it's officially a 501c3 as of a year ago.
Portland Through Bars, what is that?
I'll elaborate on that in a minute. Yeah, I'm going to go through them play by play. So Proud Realty is where I hang my real estate license. I'm just licensed in Oregon, but a few of my colleagues are licensed in Washington. So I refer out. If you or anybody you ever know wants to buy or sell property, please keep me in mind. And I have my information about that up here. So Thriving in PDX was established in 2007. David Agranoff used to live here. He and his wife, Carrie, moved to San Diego, but he got a few of us activists together, said, hey, what do you think about starting this organization where it's like very community focused. We want to eliminate recidivism in the vegan lifestyle, and we want people to meet their community and hopefully find like a best friend. So that support is there. So that was the foundation of Thriving in PDX. We've had various iterations of events we've done, focuses, goals over the years, decades almost now. I can't believe it's already been 18 years. And I'm the only one who is a founding member that's still involved, although a couple of the founding members still live locally. They're just doing other things. So our website is thrivinginpdx.org. We're on Facebook and Instagram. If you're on either of those, we just had our annual retreat to plan out 2025. We're doing a camping trip this year with supporters. We're planning like some sort of vegan perfume scent smelling sampling event. So not just focusing on food, but thinking beyond when it comes to the vegan lifestyle and animal testing and things like that. And then We're going to do a crafting day to make things for House of Dreams Cat Shelter, and they're pretty kitty bazaar. So if you're crafty, want to sew some kicker pillows or catnip toys, keep an eye on us. We got some fun things, but it's still very community focused, social. Sometimes we have snacks, or like, we're going to do a wine and cheese party so you can try all the cheeses and figure out what your favorite is. And sometimes we sprinkle in some subtle activism into our events, but it's nothing that's, storming Whole Foods or something like that, or a shop. It's usually like putting things on telephone poles, or don't tell, because this is illegal. Please don't report me. Putting these on stop signs, if you see them. So this is called sticker activism. And I also brought breaching the Lower Snake River dams, which is a Washington and Oregon issue if you want these. And then just a general social justice sticker, especially with everything going on right now. ICE has been spotted in my neighborhood. It's very scary for some of our community members. So if you want some of these stickers, I brought these for that too. Yeah, so that's tryveganpdx.org. We need to update our materials. I did not bring any handouts about us, but there's our website and information. Any question about Try Vegan PDX? Okay. So Northwest Animal Foundation, two of my longtime friends who have been vegan and activists much longer than I have. I've been vegan for 17 years, pescatarian for 3 or 4 years before that. But they have been arrested multiple times and have been vegan for decades. But they decided to invite me to consider starting this nonprofit. And Elaine in particular loves thrifting and upcycling. And so she thought, okay, what if we sell, like it's a pop-up thrift shop, and we sell the items, and then we're donating all the money to animal shelters and sanctuaries around the world. And eventually maybe we could have like a vegan thrift shop where people can donate their vegan items and we could just resell it. So her, Jill, and myself said, yeah, this is cool. We all love thrifting. We love secondhand, keep things out of the landfill. Let's start it. So we did. And they were involved for the first, I would say, 3 or 4 years. And we did the pop-up thrift stores. And we did raise a decent amount of money, but it was a lot of work. And if you've ever been in a position to collect donations from the community, the quality isn't always there. And so when Jill and Elaine transferred out and new board members and committee members came on, I'm a leader that is checking in every year. Are you happy in the role you're in? Do you want to stay doing that? Do you want to step down? What can we do differently? Like, I can pivot at any time. I'm not stuck with what we've already done. And so when we brought in these new folks, I checked in with them, and we did a few of the pop-up thrift stores, and realizing, okay, we got to store all these shelves, all these racks. We got to set these clothes up, figure out how to donate whatever's left, because we don't want to store 8 bins of things at the end. It was just too much work. I mean, easily like 7 hours of our day each time we had a pop-up thrift store. So we decided as a committee to pivot to bake sales. And we just had our board meeting to figure out the 4 bake sales we want to do this year. To date, we've probably donated $20,000 to various shelters and sanctuaries around the world. Each pop-up sale benefits a different sanctuary or shelter. We're always open to ideas on who that should be. And then we also, our last bake sale was a benefit for us to build up our emergency reserve. And we were able to donate $300 to 3 different rescues helping with the LA fires. So we're a small nonprofit. All of them are pretty small, minimal budget. But we are big believers in, aside from like our federal, IRS 501c3 forms, we want any money we're bringing in to be going back out. We want it to be directly helping people doing the hard work and trying to save animals. We do not have a website. We discontinued it. We still have Facebook, and we have Instagram. We also have an email list. And I brought a couple, this is a magnet. Our email and stuff is still accurate, and a little about us if you want those. Just to remind yourself. So Portland Books Through Bars. So one of my favorite movies of all time that hit me hard and really impacted me when it comes to prison reform, re-entry, was Shawshank Redemption. So this has been a big top of mind topic for me for a long time, I guess, since the 90s when that came out. My friend Marin was really involved in this kind of work and actually dated someone who was at the Oregon State Penitentiary for many years, and she would host film nights where we would watch films about the prison industrial complex and talk about it and think about ways and things that we could do to try to change things or like bring awareness. And it wasn't, well, I guess it was about the time one of my cousins, he's since been released, but was arrested and served 10 years in prison for drugs and weapon charges. It was about that time that I found Portland Books Through Bars. At the time, it was Portland Books to Prisoners. And I probably found it on, well, no, it might have found it on the Hands on Portland website, which is a great platform to find out about volunteer opportunities all over the place if you're not familiar with it. And the first time I volunteered, my mom was actually in town. So we volunteered together. She loves reading. And it was awesome. And they were very grassroots and anarchist, which I can respect. But when you like need funding and you need books, because you got to pay for postage, you got to pay for tape, you got to pay for all these things, like you got to have some structure and some marketing plan. So thankfully, the people that were in charge then allowed me to start a MailChimp. A friend of mine was writing articles in the Portland Mercury called From Slacktivism to Activism, and she featured us a few times. And slowly I was able to kind of, not formalize this, we're definitely still very informal, which I'm all about, but create some sort of communication plan, outreach goals. Because there were many times I volunteered, we ran out of money, we ran out of letters, and then we're like, well, I guess you can all go home, and that's not a good place to be in. It's only a 2-hour session. These people come out to try to help, and that's not a good position to be in. So I got more involved, and we were a fiscally sponsored organization sharing 10% of any money that we brought in with our fiscal sponsor at the time, which worked for many, many years. But in the last few years, we had miraculously received $5,000 donations or even grants. So for us to then turn around and give $500 of that to an organization was a big deal. So as a core committee, we decided, let's try to become a 501c3. That way we can keep any donations that come to us, because we easily spend $500 a month in postage alone. So thinking of direct action and overhead budget, that $500 was a big deal to give up. And it's not, this kind of work, there are not a lot of grants and fundings for. So when you get a $5,000 donation, you want it to go as far as it can. So it's been around since the 90s. I got involved around 2015. We became a 501c3 in 2023. This is the one I'm also the president of. We have a website just recently revamped by our vice president. It looks really nice. It's a really nice website. And then we're on Facebook and Instagram. We may phase out our Facebook a little bit. We're having that conversation. I don't know yet if we will, but we also have an email list. And then Northwest VEG. So like I said, I was on the board for 8 years. I led committees for 5 years. And they had a very busy event season this last fall. And some changes in people that were supposed to have leadership roles. And so I don't remember how the conversation started, whether it was Keith or Peter, because I didn't know Alexandra at the time, but reached out and said, would you be willing to come back and, help us get through this event season? And I said, sure. I'm willing to donate an hour here, an hour there. But anything more than that, based on everything else I'm involved with, it's and having been involved for so many years, it's got to be compensated. So they were willing to do that. So I helped with the Compassionate Living Festival as a volunteer coordinator. And it was so funny activating my email again. I'm like, oh, it's 2017 was the last time I looked at this email, you know, like blast from the past. And then I helped with the Tofurkey Trot with Gail, and then the Compassionate Thanksgiving at that Beaverton church that I had never been to, which was cool, but a learning experience since well, all of them were learning experiences because I had only been volunteers at them. I don't know if I had ever led any of them in recent years. So I had to like learn, what did you do last year? How did that work? Or what's the plan for this? How is this venue gonna work? So Tofurkey Trot was a huge success, by the way. Don't know if you heard, but $15,000 is being distributed to 9 sanctuaries that we partnered with. So super awesome.
15,000.
15,000, yeah. And the 9 local sanctuaries were the ones that will be the beneficiaries that were tabling at the event too. But we had thousands of people, very, very patient people. And a local business donated these 10% off coupons that were meant to go to the runners, but they got lost in the piles of stuff. So if any of you like foot traffic, know someone who likes running shoes, just want to take these for future use. I see no expiration on them, and I brought a stack of them. And then I also brought little recipe cards using a local company's product called Save to See, which is at like some of the, you know, New Seasons, Alberta Co-op. And then, yeah, this is me, my LLC website, my professional contact. Do you have any questions about me or anything I just spit? Typically between 1 a.m. and 9 a.m. I start winding down and going to bed at midnight. I'm most productive in the afternoon and evening.
Well, I have to say, I've seen a lot of people be involved in this organization over the years, and people in Portland, Vancouver area. But, you know, everybody gets burned out after several years, and you got staying power. Yeah, you do.
Yeah, but I'm also very like respectful and mindful of my time, you know, which is hard sometimes, like leaving Northwest Veg, but I knew that my time to start this nonprofit was needed there. And you know, I think change is good. I'm a big believer in change. It's actually weird to be more in a settling down phase of my life. But my dad has a lot of energy. So if you've ever met him, that's where we get it. It's like the Cintas, Spanish, Portuguese. A lot of energy. But yes, I do. I respect my sleep. I want to have good sleep. And I try to have balance still. Luckily, none of these, I mean, real estate is always my priority because that's my income to allow me to be involved in so many things. But the nonprofit stuff, I never spend more than 2 or 3 hours a week on, you know? So it's just like, okay, Thursday's Red Cross, Tuesdays are Books Through Bars. Really, each nonprofit gets their day of the week. Any other questions?
I'd love to hear about you mentioned world travel on your
Yeah.
bio, so love to hear.
So, you know, there's like 260 countries. So when you think of that number, I haven't really been to that many, but I've been to 17. I've been to multiple continents, and most recently in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, for the first time. I always have a wish list of where I want to travel to, but I'm a pretty frugal person. So I pretty much travel on travel deals. Or if friends invite me to join them on a trip, then maybe I'll make an exception and spend more than I would otherwise. But this year, so none of my family lives locally. My mom is in Arizona. My dad's in Colorado. My older brother's still in Hawaii. My younger brother is in Bishop outside of Mammoth, California. So this year, my mom and I are talking about maybe going back to Hawaii because neither one of us have been back in like 11 years. Just to see friends, the Big Island, Kona. Just to see friends. And my older brother, I just saw him at a cousin's funeral in July, but haven't seen his house. Yeah, it was a rough summer last summer, but you know, sometimes things can come in multiple storms like that. And then my dad, so my grandmother was from Madeira Island. She was born on Madeira Island outside of Portugal, which is actually closer to Africa. And none of my grandparents are alive anymore, but my dad and I have been casually talking about maybe going to Madeira Island in Portugal just to see more of the genealogy, family roots. Yeah.
Madeira.
I know.
And you'll be treated exceptionally well because they don't see very Americans.
All right. Well, a couple of my friends are like expats over there, and they're loving living there. So yeah, no, I've heard good things. You know, gorgeous buildings, beautiful water. But so those are the tentative goals. No tickets are bought.
Island.
Small island, yeah.
You won't be there long.
No. I'm keeping an eye on like, and stop here, because I figure a day or two would probably be enough. But yeah, love traveling. Believe everybody should have an activated passport just in case. Yeah, I'm encouraging a couple actually like core volunteers of Portland Books Through Bars to get their passport because they've never been out of the country. And I'm like, you don't have to go out of the country, but I think you should have a current passport. You know, even to Canada and like Mexico. You don't even have to fly if you're not a flying person. So, any other questions about the organizations or
The books through bars or
letters and tell us what kind of reading material they would like. We keep a library active, circulating, and we send them a package free of charge every week. And it's a quite a span of things. There are times where people get very, very specific. So they end up going into what's called a special request file. And then we just fill those as we can because that's going to come directly out of our funding. Whereas our library is obtained by the community members donating books, publishers, authors sending us books. So we don't spend any money on, you know, curating our library. But
and where do you house this library?
so yeah, it's called Alder Commons. It's basically at the corner of Northeast 42nd and Prescott in Northeast Portland. It's kind of like a grassroots community center that's membership based. Both individuals and organizations and nonprofits can join as members. But they have like a workshop there. They do plant medicine and cultivating. They do cooking there. They'll host like documentary screenings or fundraisers. So we're lucky being a nonprofit partner. We only spend $100 a month on rent. In one of the rooms, you know, we just always have our stuff set up. Our library's always up there. Our desk with our computer and printer is always up there. It's since I've been involved, it's been the nicest space, but we're also outgrowing it, which is a good problem to have. When so many people are having a hard time finding enough volunteers, we're outgrowing the space. So we're trying to see how we can add a few more spots each week to get people off the wait list, but also keeping in mind, like, at some point we might have to think about going to a bigger space that hopefully won't cost a ton of money, you know?
And so the books go out and they come back, or they go out and they keep the books?
They can keep the books. Sometimes they'll pass them on to cellmates. Sometimes they'll donate them to the library at the facility if there is a facility. We've had sheriffs reach out to us or prison librarians reach out to us. And in those cases, we'll just send a box of like surplus books. So we will serve anybody that's trying to encourage education, literacy, growth.
How do they know about you?
We're in a couple resource guides, and then there's some folks, like we've had a couple lawyers reach out to us, saying how their client can request material. But we are in a couple resource guides. A lot of things in the prisons are getting digitized, and it's a business, definitely a business. And so there are a lot of places that will not allow used books. We've had rejections for magazines that are too old, books that have a dead spider in them. There's some that say it's got to be brand new with a receipt. So then we just forge a receipt with one of our local bookstore partners. Yeah, it's bullshit. It's bullshit. And it's not consistent.
From having.
Yeah. They want them to spend money to have like a digital version of it. Use their very, very little money that they might be earning to like pay to use the iPad to read the book.
Is there a certain kind of books that they like?
It's all across the board. We often run out of dictionaries and thesauruses. Yeah.
So can we done?
Yes, blank journals, line journals, drawing, coloring books, how-to books, how to build fences, how to build houses, how to start a business.
Do you have that listed somewhere?
We have a wish list, a PALS wish list, and then our website, we do have like our most requested types of books, but it's constantly changing. So right now we're pretty low on fantasy and sci-fi, which is shocking because it's usually one of our most full areas. But we have a surplus of comics, which we've never experienced before. But we're rationing, like, you can only send 2 per package because we got to stretch these out. So it varies, but definitely reach out to us if you ever have books you want to donate, or go to that Hands-On Portland site. We just activated our next 3 months of volunteer sessions. It's every Tuesday from 5:30 to 7:30. If you want to come and see what we do and volunteer for a session at Alder Commons.
Sorry, what day did you say?
Tuesday nights from 5:30 to 7:30. And I know you would be doing what I just did to get here, the traffic, that time of day, but give yourself a,
Terrible going that way.
well, and it's northeast, so it's a little closer.
But I ain't going into Portland.
That's true, that time of day. Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah. So that's what we do. When we became a 501c3, since there's so much paperwork, you're, basically saying who your officers are, what your bylaws are, what your articles of incorporation are, we decided that was a good time to change our name. And we intentionally took the name Prisoners because we believe words have power, and a lot of folks are wrongfully incarcerated and are killed all the time. So we wanted to change the verbiage on how we were identified, which was funny because the Seattle chapter, where we usually get 100 letters a month from, said, does this mean you don't want to partner with us? Because there's still books to prisoners. Like, no, it's not personal. We just wanted to change our name. We definitely still want this regional partnership. We'd love to take letters because we sometimes get low on them. So I have my email request folder. Then we have our P.O. Box letters. And then we have the letters we get from Seattle. Sometimes we help other chapters that have a big backlog. So like Great Falls, I think they were in Indiana, just sent us 200 letters from a year ago. So when we get letters that are older than 2 months, actually 3 months is our new rule, we check to make sure they're still there, and we check the restrictions because it does vary state to state, jail to jail. We don't want to spend $5 if it's going to be rejected. So yeah, so that's what we do. It's really good work. We've received a lot of letters from people who have been released and like, these programs were so awesome for me. And people just really share how impactful it is to not only be able to communicate with someone outside, but to receive something like that,
Well, to ask for something and then to receive what you asked for. I mean,
Right.
doesn't
For free.
be rid of it.
Yeah.
So do most of the places allow you to give used books?
We're identified as an approved vendor. So used is okay. But again, going back to donations, somebody spent money mailing this box to me. It was probably a 50-pound box. And 6 of the books were literally falling apart. 1 with no cover. You could have saved some money taking these out. So, I screen all the donations that come in. I have a process of trying to get some postage money for us, sell books back to pals, or sell them onto eBay before we put them on the shelf. And so, yeah, if the cover is missing, if the binding is wearing, if there's a bunch of writing and highlighting, they just end up in our free pile because I'm not going to send that in regardless of whether or not it would get rejected. It's not worth the money.
The Camas Library here always, I think it's 4 times a year. They have, you can take a whole, like a grocery bag, and you can have the cloth ones, which are really nice and large, for $5. You just pick whatever you,
Nice.
and that's on a Sunday, the last day of the sale.
Okay.
There are beautiful, beautiful books there.
Yeah.
If you could go through lots of different types in there, arranged in different types,
Yeah.
If you could go through there and just go, oh,
I've seen people like this one before,
Right. Yeah, the
really cheap.
Multnomah County Friends of Library, they have an annual similar sale at the Doubletree and Lloyd Center. And they always invite us the last day to take whatever we want for free. And then we have partnership bookstores who tell us what you need. We have a box of fantasy sci-fi for you. So we have really nice partnerships. PSU right now, their School of Social Work. Whenever someone reaches out and says, I have a library of books, I tell them, okay, we need to try to come there if you're local to see what you have, because we're particular, especially in certain subjects, and we certainly don't want someone going through the trouble of like dropping off 10 boxes of books and we only accept, one box and we got to deal with the other 9. So it's always best to email us if you know of those types of events. But so far, obtaining like our general library books hasn't been a huge issue. It's more the specific titles like numerology, Wiccan, something also very annoying. This is kind of across the board. Nudity is not allowed, even if it's an art book. If there are nipples showing, it will be rejected. But graphic violence is okay. So many people ask for art books, and we literally have to like fan through it. Like, should we try to draw a bikini on this top? Like it's pretty ridiculous. But we have, 20-page packet that is the restriction list. So we just look up state by state to see when the last rejection was, and if it was recent, then we respect it, and if it wasn't, then maybe we'll risk it and see what happens. Because wordings change, rules change, you never know. But that also depends on what our budget is. Like how much is in the bank to take those risks.
It's phenomenal, the amount of work that you do.
Yeah, it's very rewarding, and it's one of those things you see the direct impact of the volunteer work, I mean, with all of them you do, because, we've had people get engaged at our events at Try Vegan PDX. Like, we've had Northwest Animal Foundation, of course, the sanctuaries, delivering a check in person, or, helping them through a really horrendous disaster. Like, just every little bit helps. When we used to do the pop-up thrift stores, I remember, I don't know if they were houseless or just very low income, but somebody had donated a dog crate, and it hadn't sold. It was towards the end of the sale. This person's like, can I have that? I could use that. And we're like, yeah, sure. So like if it's getting a new home, we're fine with that. So yeah, that's the kind of volunteer work I really love. And going back to motivation, I think that helps a lot when you can see like the direct results of what you're doing, what you're putting time and effort into, whether locally or just interpersonally, progress.
Do you get feedback from the prisoners that have received books?
Yeah, sometimes. And we've had formerly incarcerated people volunteer with us too. We also have people volunteer with us for hours instead of serving time. But yeah, it's hard because like we get letters from across the country. Indiana was probably our top letter source, followed by Texas last year. And so when they write a letter, at least regionally, it goes to the Seattle chapter, and how those letters are distributed varies. So it's not like we're always communicating with the same person, but the letters we receive say, oh, I heard about this, or this has been so helpful, and we always hope like someone we directly served might come back, because that would be awesome. But it's just nice that we have had formerly incarcerated people volunteer with us and stuff. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Any other questions? I have no idea what time it is. Is that it? Oh, okay, good.
This is just very, very indirectly related, but I was just going through my closets today, and I have a lot of like really nice suits from my business professional days that don't need anymore.
Okay.
And I was wondering if you might know if your connections a place to donate.
Yeah, I would suggest Dress for Success,
Okay.
or maybe Rahab Sisters. Those would the
House appreciates the suit.
what?
They do.
Dress for success
Yeah.
really appreciates.
They've been around a long time too, and their specific thing is to provide interview clothing for people that can't afford it or don't have it. And the Rahab Sisters, they're like a domestic violence outreach.
More the higher end professional.
Yeah. But I mean, people escaping DV are in,
Sure.
but they got to start over because their spouse controls everything or whatever, So those are the two I'd recommend looking into, starting point. Yeah. Any other questions? Keith?
Just a quick question, I hope, but it's so fascinating to think of Northwest VEG as getting the vegan community going in Portland and been here for so long, but now we've sort of diverged into multiple directions of vegan groups and different motivations. I just wondered if you saw and more of a convergence in the future. What could help us to move toward working together,
Yeah.
not seeing, borders between organizations so much, but just seeing it as we're all kind of family and is trying to make things change.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion is I think the more people trying to make a difference, focusing on different issues is good. I think collaboration is important. Try not to reinvent the wheel. Like, if it's been done, don't try to do it again. Just try to support what already exists. As far as our local vegan community goes, so the two biggest issues, at least for me, is the lack of intersectionality, true intersectionality, and accessibility. Like, your passion can be animals and animal rights, but if you don't care about how that impacts farmers in the fields or, the prison racism basically impact or things like that, then that's a problem for me because in a lot of ways they overlap. And then there are, I appreciate all the hands up, all the shout outs, but I think it's really important, especially for leaders, to not be self-centered and wanting all the attention, to try to be more collaborative and team-oriented, because if you don't let go and you don't delegate and you don't trust people or let people take on their projects, it's really difficult to keep them, and then you're just all alone again. But that also creates what would be like strong organizations from fracturing or losing founding members. So I'm really grateful, even though there's been changes with all these organizations, all of them, our board members have been actively and literally actively planning everything for 8+ years. And I take a lot of pride in that, because I understand life happens, things change. But the fact that people have stuck around and continue to literally plan every aspect of these organizations and be involved at the events and stuff is awesome. So especially now, there's so much more that needs to be addressed, especially if you consider yourself intersectional. But yeah, I think collaboration, trying to see the overlap in causes, so partnering with environmental organizations, even if they're not vegan-led or run, but you have the same goal. And then, yeah, try not to be, the center of attention all the time or wanting all the credit for whatever might be happening. Try to acknowledge the value of team. Those are the, whether it'll happen, I don't know. I have hope. I mean, I was in the activism scene, mid to late 2000s. That's when our Fur Free Friday was like 200 people. I've been to protests up in Seattle with hundreds of people. Granted, some of the businesses we were protesting have since closed, but I've seen the height of the activism scene in the vegan community, and it is different. But there are still a lot of people that have been vegan activists for a long time that are doing really awesome work that you probably have never heard about, because they're just not on social media or they're just not me, So, yeah, just be aware of that. Sometimes things are happening even when you don't see them. And for good reason. I mean, some of it, involves illegal activity too, so. In a good way. Shutting down these things is good. You don't have to agree with me, but. Any other questions before we wrap it up? Hopefully I didn't completely bore you. But yeah, help yourself for this information if you want. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Deanna.
You'll have
Well,
little now.
so you're wonderful her that she got all this energy and all these things going on, and she's now stop. Keep this continually going. So talk about the Energizer Bunny. Really, and we appreciate all the things you're doing. We appreciate your coming and telling us and reminding us that we all have a lot to give.
Yeah.